You mentioned Jake Paul there. Man's
Yeah.
been saying that if they can't do the KSI fight, then that's the option.
Yeah, we're cooking that. Everyone's cooking that.
If HS can focus and actually really dedicate time to fighting and improving his skill level, he beats Jake Paul in a year.
And that's what's going to happen. You're going to see me knock out the next guy. I'll probably fight in October, then I'll fight again in November, then January, and then Jake Paul next summer, and I'll knock him out as well.
All right, so we're back. I haven't posted in a couple days. I've been here in Orlando getting ready for Most Valuable Prospects number 8. As you see this video, it will have happened last night, but I'll be on the plane and I want to have a different discussion. Something is happening in Misfits right now when it pertains to what you would think would be a KSI Jake Paul fight. But we have been over and over and over that fight, like that relationship that you break up in, you get back in, you break up and you get back in, and you know it's not good for you. You just keep going back because there's nothing else out there. At least that's what you think. I am starting to see a new strategy from Misfits when it comes to a Jake Paul fight, and that is to put forth a new opponent. And I'm talking about HS TikkyTokky. Yes, the name is weird, but the guy himself is a big dude, physical guy, just now getting into boxing, but looks like he does have some natural talent, and I normally wouldn't even make a video on this because I know what you're saying. One, you're either saying W.A.D.E glazing again in the comments, or you're saying, why are we even talking about this? And normally I wouldn't, because Jake has far more experience, fights, time in the game. This fight doesn't make any level of sense to make right now, but this thing is developing, and it's a very interesting thing to talk about. Not for the reasons you may believe, but I'll explain the breakdown. Let's go. So like I said, this fight doesn't warrant any sort of actual breakdown because, one, I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form competitive at the moment, and I don't see it being very competitive, at least not for a long period of time. But Misfits isn't asking for this fight to happen right now. In fact, it's not just Mams Taylor asking for this fight, or essentially throwing out the possibility of this fight being something that can happen. You've seen Mams, HS, KSI, Leon Wells weighing in on this. It seems like a bit of a team effort from Misfits to put forth and prop up a HS TikkyTokky Jake Paul fight, mainly because of the weight, I think. HS is 215, 213. Jake walks around the same weight from what I know. But they've all had a similar message behind it. And you can see this on Twitter. You can see it in video caption. You can see it from HS himself. They're saying in 1.5 years, HS will beat Jake Paul in a boxing match. And I disagree. And for some reason, over the last couple of years, people still tend to think that I don't have my own opinion. I'm just a mouthpiece for other people. That's not the case. I just don't agree with that sentiment. I don't agree that HS is going to make up that amount of ground in 1.5 years. And I'd love to be proven wrong, right? Some parity in the influencer boxing scene. Let's do it. But the reason I'm talking about this fight isn't because I think the matchup itself is interesting, because I don't right now. I think Jake is far and away better than HS is as a boxer. And they're talking about this thing going down in 1.5 years. If HS treats this 1.5 years like he's a full-fledged boxer, if he does, awesome. I am pumped to see HS commit to the sport because I do think he has some natural talent. He's a big guy, strong guy, and he can probably knock some other out. That'll be great for the influencer boxing scene. What I am skeptical to think is that he's willing to take on that kind of lifestyle. And what I mean is the lifestyle that Jake, that KSI, and KSI doesn't really even live that lifestyle. Really, it's just Jake that does the actual boxer lifestyle. And you can say, okay, well, Jake's been doing this for 5 years, so you have to give HS time. I'm willing to do that. The point isn't just that he doesn't have the amount of time to do it. It's the commitment to the sport that I don't know if HS is willing to make. It would have to be a commitment that even someone like KSI isn't making right now to boxing. Like, HS is going to have to go and have like 6, 7, 8 fights in the next 1.5 years. And also, not just have fights, he's going to need to train. He's going to need to work on his gas tank. He's going to need to work on the fundamentals of boxing, things that would make him into a better fighter that can last in situations where he doesn't just walk out, touch the guy on the chin, and they fall to the ground. And I know HS is a strong guy and believes in his power, and that's great for the sport of boxing. But you have to have backup plans when those things don't work out. And if we are going to entertain this Jake Paul fight, you have to look at how Jake Paul got to where he is and what HS would have to do to get there as well. And that means fighting people with one, experience, and a name. I'm seeing right now one step toward that where HS is calling out Dylan Dennis on Twitter. And I actually like the call out because it does make a level of sense, right? There's a bit of history with Dylan Dennis and Misfits, and HS looking to fight big names and also an MMA fighter. It's a little bit of the same trajectory Jake got started on. I like that, but again, it's going to need to be more than just the Instagram and the Twitter and the call outs. It's got to be the work put in. That's really where the spice enters the sauce. You stir it up, and bon appetit. We do have a meal here. We got something to sink our teeth into. Pause. And again, the biggest example though is of someone that's done that is Jake. Committed to the sport like no other YouTuber has, living the life fully, doesn't really ever stop training. And we're talking about a magnitude of difference from a year and a half to 5, 6, 7 years by that time in the game that Jake will have. I just don't see it being very competitive right now. My mind could change, obviously, based on what HS is willing to do and how much he's willing to commit and how good he really can be. I don't know those things yet. But you do need to, if KSI and Jake are not going to be the fight, if you're Misfits and you want to have some sort of skin in the game in that case, right? You want to have some sort of way of you know, shooting across the bow at Jake or whatever it is. This is not a bad way to do it, right? Prop up a guy that's around Jake's weight that, you know, I guess you think is more realistic you can make the fight, and clearly they think he can win the fight. Again, I disagree. But I do think it's interesting because it does feel like a deviation away from Jake versus KSI into here fight our other guy that isn't KSI, that I guess, again, is around the same weight and we want to make into a superstar. I don't mind the move at all. I just don't know if the cachet is there. I don't know if HS TikkyTokky has the attention of the amount of people that would grab the attention of a Jake Paul fight. I'm also seeing that Jake and MVP and others are starting to kind of quietly tease at least the Tommy Fury rematch. If you look at some of Tommy Fury's new footage that he's dropped and he's using his right hand again, MVP's in those comments talking about welcome back Tommy, or do we want to see the rematch? So you can see where this direction is headed. Again, I've been on record saying I think Jake absolutely needs to rematch Tommy Fury. It's not a want. It's not a well, maybe. No, I think he needs to do that. You have to get that one back. You have to get over that hump if you're going to show the world that you are getting better and competing on a different level than you were a year ago, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago, all of that. And sometimes that means going back to the place where you hit the plateau and exceeding that. That's the Tommy Fury fight. I know that KSI also wants the Tommy Fury rematch. It seems like we're going to have a bidding war of 2024, so to speak, when it comes to that one. But yeah, very interesting game plan here. Very interesting play by Misfits to insert HS TikkyTokky into this conversation almost out of nowhere. It does feel like a very calculated move, though, from Mam saying it to now KSI on Twitter saying it to Leon Wills also getting into that conversation, part of the Misfits small council deal there. Contrary to popular belief, these things are not done by accident. There's something at play here. And again, I think it's a bit nonsensical where we sit right now. I even think in a year and a half, we're not going to be so vastly different than we are now with HS's wins, ability, that we can start to consider that fight close or competitive. I just personally don't think that. But again, a year and a half is a long time. It's a long time to get fights in. Could potentially see what HS has, but for now, I think it's a bit far-fetched. But the idea behind it is something I'm very interested in. Misfits as a conglomerate getting behind someone and propping them up for a fight that isn't just inside of Misfits or isn't just in that kind of bubble isn't something that we've actually seen outside of KSI, right? We haven't really seen it with Dean or Slim or Salt Poppy just yet. So this is the first time where you're seeing Callie Sauerland, Mams, KSI all get behind one guy and say he can be the guy we can push towards some other stuff. And good for HS. We'll see how committed he is to the sport. That'll be the real answer to this entire discussion, which again, I don't even think we should be having yet because the guy's got one fight and didn't train for it. And the guy he fought should have never walked into that boxing ring. I think the first time he walked into a boxing ring probably was the night of the fight. That's how bad. George Fensom, I think was the guy's name. That's how bad he looked. But that's not a knock on HS. Did what you got to do. Let's see where this goes. Jake Paul versus HS TikkyTokky. Is it competitive? Right now, absolutely not. In a year and a half, I still think absolutely not. But the idea behind it, trying to prop up one of your fighters that's around Jake's weight, you don't have that as an issue during negotiations, isn't a terrible idea. It's just the cachet has to follow. The work has to be put in. The names have to be beaten. The clout has to be had. So for HS, you got a year and a half. Go out and get as big a name as possible. Win massive fights. Train hard. As far as a matchup with Jake Paul, I think not. But I don't have those answers. And I'm willing to sit and watch. And I'm pumped to see, can HS take this time and build himself into Misfits' next superstar? Can he get to the recognition of Jake Paul again? I don't see it. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible. So, you guys let me know what you think, and I guess we'll be on the clock. HS, you got a year and a half. And by 2025, maybe we're sitting around talking about a whole different conversation, but I don't have those answers. So, I guess we'll find out.